Okay, we'll begin the Planning Committee meeting of Akron City Council. I'd like to request Sarah Biviano to please call the roll.
Fusco.
Aye.
Kamer.
Aye.
Connor. Baylor.
Aye.
Mosley.
Aye.
All committee members are present.
Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept the minutes of the previously held meeting.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Very good. The ayes have it. With that, we have actually 10 items, I think, or 8 items. Nope. 10 items up for a public hearing today. However, we're going to consolidate those into one public hearing. We do have a substitute also, and I'd like for the clerk to please read that in.
Sure, this is a substitute offered as an amendment. Ordinance amending, supplementing Title 15, Chapter 153, Zoning Code, Article 2, Districts and Maps, and Article 5, Accessory Uses in Residence Districts by adding a form-based zoning code and declaring an emergency. This public hearing is the establishment of the City of Akron form-based zoning code and rezoning the Merriman Valley. So this public hearing will be for items number 1 through 10 in the Planning and Economic Development Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good. The process is that we will receive a report from the Planning Department and reference a brief report from the Planning Department in reference to this. In terms of all 10 proposals, as I understand it, we will then ask if there's anyone here or online wish to speak to the committee today referencing these the change in terms of the Merriman Valley proposal. Be sworn in by Sarah Biviano, our clerk of council. After that, we'll open up a public hearing, and we'll have all of those who wish to testify before the committee. Give you a few minutes if you could please provide for us your name and address. After that, we'll close the public hearing. We'll open it up to questions or comments from the committee members and then all of City Council. What we'll do tonight is repeat that process. The only difference tonight and today is that the committee will make a recommendation to all of council tonight, either in favor, against, or to table an item, take time. And that would be in reference to all 10 items this evening. So they will be read in. We will have an additional public hearing on those items, and the committee will then make a recommendation to all of council. So with that, excuse me, Mr. D'Angelo is here, I believe, or Mr. Antonucci, somebody is here.
We're both here.
With the explanation in terms of what we're going to be discussing. Mr. Antonucci.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. In 2021, the cities of Akron and Cuyahoga Falls engaged residents, businesses, and other stakeholders in creating a master plan for the Merriman Valley and Schumacher areas of the cities, both cities. The master plan was completed in February 2022. The plan envisions the Merriman Valley and Schumacher neighborhoods as more walkable and equitable places with improved transportation systems for all users. The plan emphasizes protection of the environment through conservation neighborhoods, habitat corridors, and riparian setbacks. And the plan recognizes that the Merriman Valley Business District has the potential to serve as a gateway to the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. Using the master plan as a guide, the City of Akron is taking actionable steps toward realizing the vision laid out in this plan. One of those steps is the adoption of a form-based zoning code that will guide conservation and development in the Merriman Valley neighborhood. The zoning code for the City of Akron was adopted in 1922. It has been amended many times since then. The proposed form-based zoning ordinance will provide a modern zoning code for the city. It will ensure that going forward, new development in the Merriman Valley adheres to the vision of the master plan. The City of Akron form-based code will foster creation of a vibrant, walkable neighborhood by allowing for a mix of compatible uses. The form-based code specifies requirements for the physical character and layout of the built environment, rather than focusing on separation of building uses, such as residential versus commercial. The new code will use simple visual language and diagrams that are easily understood by the general public. The code will ensure predictable results for all stakeholders. Proposed changes to the code would be the businesses located on Merriman Road, Weathervane Lane, and North Portage Path, currently zoned retail. These areas will be rezoned to mixed-use district, MX3, and mixed-use shopfront district, MXS3. The west end of Merriman Road, currently zoned apartment house district near U2, will be rezoned to neighborhood flex district. This is for apartments with retail. The existing businesses in Akron on Akron Peninsula Road are currently zoned UPD 22. They would be rezoned to mixed-use flex district, MXF. This would allow offices and commercial, which are currently there, but add retail. Several existing housing developments on Akron Peninsula Road and West Portage Trail, including Timberland Village, Riverwood, Hampton Knoll, Pheasant Run, Cascade Falls, and Redwood, currently zoned UPD 22, 23, and 29. The Water's Edge housing development on North Portage Path is zoned single family, although also conditionally zoned. These developments will be rezoned to neighborhood district, which is N2.5, which allows for apartments still. Properties on the north side of West Portage Trail, currently zoned UPD 23, will be rezoned to Conservation Neighborhood District, CN. Properties within the study area on Sackett Hills Drive, currently zoned single family, would be rezoned to Conservation Neighborhood District, CN. Properties that are currently undeveloped and publicly owned along Merriman Road in Cuyahoga Falls would be rezoned to Open Space Conservation District, which is basically passive recreation. Establishment of the form-based zoning code and rezoning of the Merriman Valley will help accomplish the goals of the Merriman Valley Schumacher Area Master Plan. The planning staff, Office of Integrated Development, and Planning Commission recommend approval of the establishment of the City of Akron form-based zoning code and the rezoning of the Merriman Valley. And I'll hand this off now to Daniel D'Angelo, and he's here to present the benefits of a form-based zoning code for the area, so we can see that on the screen now.
Hopefully. That's great. Hi, everybody. My name's Daniel D'Angelo. I'm an architect and planner in the Office of Integrated Development. Thanks, everybody, for coming today and listening to this presentation. We are going to talk about 4 things today. I'll give a brief overview of the master plan. Then we'll talk about why we need a new zoning code, why we feel we need that new zoning code in the city. I'll explain what a form-based code is, and then talk specifically about the code in this that we're proposing today. Hopefully,
There's an infinite amount of possibilities.
Yeah.
There always are.
There we go. Awesome. And so, if you guys need to cut me off at some point, feel free to do that. The master plan was done, as Mike said, mostly in 2021, finished in early 2022. It was the result of an extensive community process, a lot of community meetings, a lot of input from, first it was a partnership with City of Cuyahoga Falls, which was pretty unique. They were great partners, and then we had residents, we had business owners, Preserve the Valley, the council people themselves. The whole community really, we felt like, participated in this plan, and we feel like it came up with a good document. It's actually a really great thick document available on our website, the City of Akron Planning website. But 3 main takeaways are that residents wanted to see green space conserved. They wanted the valley to be a gateway to the Cuyahoga Valley National Park, and they wanted the business district in the valley to be a walkable place. I'll take those one by one. Conservation neighborhoods. So the residents wanted the valley, the rural parts, the undeveloped parts to remain undeveloped. Property owners do have a right to develop that property, so we had to kind of strike a balance between those 2 things. So what we're doing is setting aside 70% of the land in these conservation neighborhoods for open space, and then the developers or the property owners will still be able to develop on 30% of that land. We can regulate, but we can't prohibit development. These are some examples of what conservation neighborhood might look like. It might be something like cottage courts around a small courtyard. It might be single-family development where you just set aside 70% of that land. It could be townhouses or small apartment buildings. But again, that 70% of the land is set aside as open space. As far as gateway communities are concerned, we agree with the public that the Valley really has the potential to be a gateway community. It already is serving that purpose now, but we think it could be even better. So we studied great gateway communities all over the country and tried to incorporate the characteristics of those other communities into the zoning code. This is a rendering that was done by the planning consultant that we hired to help us do this master plan, Farr Associates out of Chicago. So this is a vision, two things I want to emphasize. This is a vision of Portage Trail and Merriman Road, Portage Path, and Merriman Road. But it's a 20 or 25-year vision. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it is going to happen over time. As property owners decide to redevelop their land, they will be required to meet the zoning code. And over time, we'll get something closer to a walkable neighborhood than what we have right now. The other really important point to remember is that if you own property right now in the Valley, if you are a business owner, or if you own a home in the Valley and you're happy with it the way that it is, you're fine. The code doesn't really affect you. It's only if you want to redevelop your property or significantly change your property, that's when the code will apply. Just really want to be clear about that. Stick that point. And then the last thing that came out of that master plan was a walkable neighborhood center. This is a view of what Merriman Road could look like under the new zoning code. And the basic thing that it does is just accommodate more than just cars. It allows for wider sidewalks, for bicycles, for sidewalk cafes. And so you get all these great images that come out of a master plan, and I think this is common with many master plans, and everybody's excited about it. How do we actually turn that vision into reality when this is what the Valley looks like today? And, you know, the amazing thing about the Valley is that it is a vibrant business district, and the business owners down there really deserve a lot of credit for you know, running these great establishments. There's great restaurants, there's unique shops down there, bike rentals, and running shops, and all kinds of great things. But the actual physical fabric of the neighborhood is not very conducive to business. It's certainly not a gateway community. But it looks that way for the most part because that's what the zoning code either allows or requires. The zoning code requires that the buildings be set back far from the street. The zoning code requires that it has a lot of parking. The zoning code allows for front-loaded garages like you see in the lower two images. Those aren't very great places to walk your dog or walk your child in a stroller. And then the physical infrastructure of the Valley itself is not very supportive of residents who aren't driving. If you're walking or if you're biking, it can be a little bit dangerous down there and not super inviting. So we don't really feel like the current zoning code that we have right now is really reflecting of our, our 21st century values. And part of the problem is that the code was literally written 100 years ago. Now, as Mike, I think, said, it has been adapted and adjusted over time, but I think there comes a point when you own a used car and you've, fixed the transmission and, put a new battery in it, eventually you need a new car. So, right now we have a zoning code written for when Akron looked like this, a different time, kind of a different set of values and a different set of problems. And today we're trying to address things like sustainability, housing affordability, equity. Those things weren't really at the forefront of the discussion back in 1922. So we believe that the new City of Akron form-based code will help us realize the vision of the master plan and, more importantly, align our regulations with what our current values and goals are. And the good news is that we're not alone here. We're actually following the lead of a lot of other cities throughout the country who have been adopting form-based codes, first in bigger cities and then in the last 5 or 10 years in places that are similar to Akron, like Buffalo, like South Bend. And Cleveland has had some overlays since 2005. We actually have the Kenmore Boulevard Business District overlay right now. And so we really see the form-based code in the Valley as an extension of what we've already been doing. The best way to understand what a form-based code is to kind of compare what our current code requires versus what's allowed under the proposed form-based code. And the main difference, the significant difference, is this idea of the current code really just is really interested in separating uses. So it wants those industrial uses away from the residential uses, which is understandable, but it also separates things like office uses from residential. Basically, the residential is separated from all the other places that you want to go to. Under a form-based code, we allow those compatible uses to be closer to where you work, where you live, so that you can walk possibly to a corner store to get a gallon of milk. You can walk and maybe walk to your church. You might still need to drive to go to your job, but it will reduce the number of trips you need to take by car, and if you don't have a car, you can still get around in a form-based neighborhood. So what do we actually mean by form-based? Basically, a form-based code focuses on the form of the building, less on the use of the building, of what's happening inside. So it's interested in the height and scale of the building, where's the building located on the site, where the parking is, and whether it has windows, things like windows and a front door facing the street. So I'm just going to run through a few examples, kind of comparing side by side under the current code, which is shown here, and then I'll show examples of what a building looks like when it's built under a form-based code. So this is a typical grocery store. It's set back far from the street. There's a big parking lot. It's probably an oversized parking lot for what's really typically needed. If you are in a car, you just park near the front door, you walk in, you buy your groceries, you leave. But if you're getting off at that bus stop in the middle of the photo and you need to get to that front door, you have to walk farther. So there's like an imbalance there between if you're driving a car and if you're taking transit. And if it's snowy out, whether that sidewalk is plowed or not is up to the business owner. So we feel like under a form-based code, you take that exact same building, you put it close to the street. That way, if you get off at the bus stop at the corner there, you can just go right in the front door. If you drive your car, there's a parking lot behind the building. You pull around the back and park. Another typical building type is a gas station that has a retail store where you might buy milk or a lotto ticket and pay for your gas, and then there's a pump island. Under a form-based code, we just require that retail store to be built near the street, and the pump islands are behind, so that it can be a place that if you're arriving by bike or on foot, you can get there without having to cross the traffic lanes. A couple of residential examples. This is a typical townhouse development. This is the Sycamore development in the Valley, where there's all garages on the ground floor. So that means the front of the buildings is all driveway rather than a front yard. And so it just ends up not being a very pleasant place to walk. It's kind of a really hard surface landscape. Under a form-based code, we just require that the garage to be in the back. So then you have living spaces in the front, you have a front yard, so it's a much more pleasant place to walk. This is actually the same Ryan Home unit in the Sycamore development. So they actually have a unit that has a rear-loaded garage, but they won't build it unless we require them to build it. That's why we need the zoning code to tell them the garage has to be in the back. Last example, just a typical single-family house. The house on the left, we say it doesn't pass the trick-or-treat test. If your child is going to go here trick-or-treating in a week or so, where's the front door? So they might come away from that house disappointed they didn't get any candy. The house on the right, it's very clear there's a front porch and a front door, so there can be interaction between the people that live in the house and the street. We feel like that makes it a safer neighborhood, a more community-oriented neighborhood. Two other differences between the current code and the proposed code. Current code uses really wordy, legalistic language. It's really dense. It's kind of hard for anybody to understand. Even us zoning folks, sometimes we struggle to understand it, so let alone the general public or a small business owner. Under a form-based code, we really want it to be transparent and upfront about what's in the code, so it's much more visual. It has diagrams, tables. You can easily find the information you need. It has examples. So hopefully, it's just a much more accessible code to everyone. And then the last difference, which is really important, is just we're taking a proactive vision here. We're saying this is what we want the Merriman Valley to be, instead of reacting to whatever a developer comes in and says they want to build. And in fact, we're saying to the developers, but also to the community, we have agreed this is what we want the community to look like. If you meet the requirements of the form-based code, then you'll be approved relatively quickly. If you want to do something different, you can, but that's when it would kick in a public review process where we'll have more discussion and we can decide whether it meets the goals of the Merriman Valley Plan. So what's actually in the zoning code itself? There's 8 new zoning districts, and then there's a new zoning map specifically mapping these districts on to the Merriman Valley. This shows the overall rezoning. Each color is a different district. This map shows both Akron and Cuyahoga Falls because the idea is that we're kind of on parallel tracks to adopt the same or very similar code so that if you're a property owner in the valley, there's consistency across property line or across city boundaries. And so I'm just going to go through each of those districts pretty quickly. These are the open space and the conservation neighborhood districts. The dark green is the open space. Those are basically the existing parks. And also along Akron Peninsula Road, that conservation area that was set aside as part of the Riverwood project. And then the kind of lighter green, grass green color are the conservation neighborhoods. Those are the ones that are going to have 70% open space, as I talked about earlier. Each zoning district is set up in a similar format where there's like a rendering on the left and then photo examples of what that district might look like on the right. And then the next 2 pages give all the different requirements for that district. So it's really, kind of straightforward and simple presentation. You can find out what your side yard setback is or how tall a building can be or how much windows you need on the front of the building just by looking at these tables. So the other districts, there's 2 neighborhood districts, the light yellow and the dark yellow. I'll tell you what the difference is in just a minute, but basically we map those onto the existing districts that already have residential development on them. The neighborhood 2.5 district just allows that mix of uses that is already there. There's some single-family homes, there's some townhouses. It also allows for small-scale apartment buildings. And then the neighborhood flex district just allows, it's the same as the neighborhood 2.5, but it allows for corner stores. So that's something like a barber shop or a beauty salon or an attorney's office, small scale, limited to 3,000 square feet within the neighborhood. And it allows for that walking within the neighborhood to reach some of your neighborhood services. Then there's the mixed-use districts. Those are basically being mapped where the existing business district is right now. There's 2 different kinds. They're similar. The mixed-use 3 district allows residential on the ground floor, but it also allows retail on the ground floor and residential above. The mixed-use shopfront requires there to be a retail business on the ground floor and then allows for residential above. And then the last zoning district is the mixed-use flex, which is mostly located along Akron Peninsula Road. And that's basically accommodating the mix of businesses that are there right now. There's office uses, there's light industrial, there's things like Tadaro's. It also allows for retail uses that aren't allowed there now. So if you wanted to have a brew pub, if you wanted to have an outfitter store for the Merriman Valley, for the Cuyahoga Valley, you could be located there and start to help create that gateway neighborhood. So we really believe that the form-based code helps achieve the goals of the master plan, conserving green space, creating walkable neighborhoods. People will be driving less, so that reduces carbon emissions, accommodating all modes of transportation, and aligning our regulations with our goals and values. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. At this point, we'll open up the public hearing and ask if there's anyone here or online who wishes to speak before the committee. If you could please be sworn in from Sarah Biviano, our clerk of council.
If you're here to participate in this public hearing, could you please stand and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say, "I do."
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. We'll open up the public hearing portion and ask if there's anyone here wishing to speak to the committee. If you could please provide for us your name and address. Here? Yes, perfect. If you can just push that big round button on the bottom of it. Perfect.
My name is Ed Sturkey. I live at 1844 Sackett Hills Drive. I came down to speak today. I've attended a few of these meetings in Akron and in Cuyahoga Falls. My house borders these properties. And I wanted to say that I'm not in objection to the broad scale of this particular project. The issue that's come up for myself and for my neighbors deals, some of them were not able to attend today because they're on the clock, but they will probably be coming down this evening. The issue here is in the current commercial zoning areas down in the valley and things like that. This is a pretty exciting opportunity, but where the unintended consequence comes in for us in that particular area, Marion Lake area, and Dillon Drive, Sackett Hills, is that the 70-30 that you gentlemen referred to, 70% open space, in the 30% open space, these structures that were townhouses and multifamily structures, if I have it right, the concentration in the 30% of those structures is wholly inconsistent with the houses that are in that neighborhood. There's a deep concern that there may be an adverse impact. These are single-family owner-occupied houses in our neighborhood, that there may be an adverse impact on property values there. We also have some unique aspects in that neighborhood that are bodies of water that are governed by other authorities and guidelines that I didn't hear addressed in the presentation. What's the remedy? I'm not down here to complain. Like I said, a portion of the project sounds pretty interesting, and I realize that the changes are inevitable. With that being said, I believe that the areas, the 30% areas that would fall adjacent to our neighborhood could be developed in a different way other than the type of structures presented and the concentration of those structures. I believe I heard something on the order of maybe 15 units per acre. So it would be a high density concentration. The houses in that neighborhood run on footprints of between 1/3 of an acre up to 5 acres. So it would be wholly inconsistent, those type of structures. That's the concern. Also the concern about the wildlife that are related to these bodies of water, et cetera, are also a concern. So those are the things that I wanted to talk about. And I don't object to the project. I just object to it in its current form. I believe that this is the opportunity to do a carve-out in terms of the zoning for that particular neighborhood. I think it wouldn't be a problem for the commercial development that's going on because it's not near the neighborhood. And last but not least, I attended the same meeting in the Falls. This is a lot more civil, this particular meeting. They came with torches and pitchforks to the Falls meeting because they were very, very concerned about their investments there in the neighborhood. And I don't think it's necessary. I think this is an opportunity for the committee to do a carve-out there in the neighborhood. And also, encourage developers in those 30% areas to come up with something creative. If they want to put single-family homes, the average cost of a home in my neighborhood is about $200,000. And so if they wanted to come up with something creative in those 30% areas on third of an acre lots that were single-family homes, you know, you guys will see the last of me today. But I think that that's something that provides an opportunity for that to happen, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strick. Thank you. Yes, sir, if you'd like to, if you could please be sworn in by Sarah.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be the truth? If so, please say I do. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could please provide for us your name and address. Thank you. Push the button. There you
Hi,
go.
my name is John White. I live at 3552 Spring Valley Road in Akron. And I own approximately 8 acres of this property that we're talking about that borders, well, it's all of Sackett Hills Drive between Merriam Lake Boulevard and Dillon and so forth. And approximately of that 8 acres, about 2.5 acres is water between Merriam Lake and I think the other lake is called Mud Lake, I think they refer to it as. And so the 15 units per acre, well, obviously you got 2.5 acres that is water, so that obviously that's not going to work. And you know, obviously whatever the intent of the conservation thing allows, but the cost of building today, you know, respect to the values of the homes, the cost of building today is approximately $250 to $300 a square foot to build. So anything to build will definitely increase the value of the neighborhood because 2,000 square foot is going to cost $500,000. I mean, that's just a fact of life. The cost of building is expensive. So anything going up is going to help the neighborhood, any single residential home or so forth. So I have no intent of what's going on, just seeing what the zoning is going to do. And obviously 15 units acres, just mathematically, that just doesn't work. But one thing that, you know, I looked at this property many years ago. What most interesting about this property is that we got two, as Ed addressed, we have 2 beautiful bodies of water that really a lot of people just can't see, just like the river down in the valley. We have this gorgeous river that most people don't see. And one of the things that this will address is that we can see, that we'll eventually be able to see these ponds, and the way they're showing how we can do walkways, that people are walking down Sackett Hills and they have to walk on the street. Well, now, whatever goes in, there will be walkways and people will be able to see these 2 beautiful, gorgeous ponds in due time. So it will be very nice. And then they talk about maybe some pathways that could be connected, and if pathways can go around the ponds or so forth, because we have the Metro Path that I think is right there by Redwood. I think there's Metro Pass. So they talk about connecting that. I mean, that's exciting. So however this leads out in due time, I think it's exciting between what we'll do for the future of the area. I mean, very, very exciting what they're doing. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak before the committee? Online? No?
We did not have anyone join online, Mr. Chair.
Very good. And no one in chambers? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, very good. Hearing no one, it's interesting how 10 pieces of legislation, when we have 2 people speak, I think it's due to the hard work that has been done behind the scenes in reference and in front of the scenes. I have a couple quick questions, comments, and then we'll open it up to the committee members. Just wanted to mention too that you'd mentioned that 2017, we did approve Kenmore Boulevard. And with that, it seems as though Kenmore Boulevard's pretty much already meets the needs of the form base, right? Am I correct? It's there.
Yes.
And it's built out pretty much, and so there doesn't seem to be like a whole lot of adjustments. It's going to be, at least not for the short run anyways.
That's right. So we have seen some like little improvements, facade improvements that have been pretty consistent with what,
Good.
you know, we're looking to see there. And then, of course, we are preserving that.
Very good. Yeah, as we should. I think what's going to happen here, what we're probably going to see, because every 10 years or so, it seems like gas stations like to refresh. And so we'll probably see, like the one picture you had shown of the one gas station there. You're probably going to see that first. That'll be one of the first things you see, at least in terms of those higher density areas, the commercial districts. And it seems as though what we're doing here, which I suppose isn't bad, I don't know if it costs more or not, but we're doing neighborhood by neighborhood. Previously, in the 90s, I think it was, we had did the whole city in terms of land use development guide plan. And that's what we've been pointing to for all these years, is something that was developed in the 90s, and we've not refreshed it, even though some of us on council has asked for that. And I understand there's a big expense for it, but it was done citywide, and it was done ward by ward, and people from all over the ward would be invited to do that. What we're doing now is focusing just on neighborhoods, one at a time. I don't know if it's good or bad. I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying this is the way it's being done. And I think it's important, though, that everyone, and in this case here, we saw quite a few meetings, quite a bit of, inclusion, even our neighbors, obviously, Cuyahoga Falls. But I believe if we're going to be doing this in the rest of the city, we need to ensure those public meetings occur. It's pivotal and important that all the communities are invited before this council deals with basically changing the underlying zoning to a large extent, and then also, the code itself and how that's going to look. One question I have, though, is could you explain for the committee and for everybody here, like whenever somebody does come in and they want to challenge, okay, the form base or what is the process? What happens?
Yeah.
They want to challenge it because to a large extent, a lot of this is going to go to BZA, a lot of it's going to go to the planning director themselves. And so, if I understand it correctly from my reading over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so what this does is pretty much, it keeps things consistent with our current code as far as what a developer can do. So this lays out specifically where things are permitted to be, and also, what uses are permitted, and also how that development should look, what it's going to end up looking like. So it is prescribed, very detailed in the zoning code. So if a developer comes in and conforms to that code, that's something that can be built by right, which is current today. So our zoning code allows lots of things by right,
Yes.
and that happens all the time. Somebody wants to vary that, if it's simply a building line setback or something like that, it could go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which is current today, which is consistent with what we do today. If it's a change of use and a drastic change, then it's a conditional use. So we're still keeping the conditional use process. There are some things that are specified in there that say, like, for instance, maybe a height of a building, that can be something like something that the administration can make a change on, can allow a change. So it's prescribed specifically in there, minor changes that aren't exactly the way the code is saying will allow an administrative decision. So
Right.
there is that part of it. But for the most part, it's the same. Board of Zoning Appeals, if certain things are desired, and then a conditional use if others, change of use, that kind of thing. So,
Good? Okay. At this point, I'll open it to committee members. Questions from committee members? Ms. Mosley?
Thank you. Really echoing what Councilman Fusco stated, making sure that when this is rolled out across the city, is making sure that each neighborhood and those residents are involved in the process, which will be very important. It's good to know that the conditional use process will still stay intact, because I think that needs to be there as a safeguard. Some municipalities, I know in Houston, their zoning is crazy, so I'm just hoping we never get to that point. After 100 years, that change is good, but I hope it doesn't take 100 years to get to the other parts of the city. When we're rolling this out, I know it's going to take maybe, 20, 25 years to get Merriman Valley where you want it to be. It seems like a long time. I'm just hoping that a more specific, Ward 5 doesn't have to wait that long. So I appreciate the work that has went into this. I just want to make sure, just like Councilman Fusco, as we're rolling this out through the city, that we do not forget about the other residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Any committee members? I don't see any. I did see Nancy Holland and then Linda Mobian. And then Mr. Malik.
Thank you, Chairman Fusco. I want to begin by thanking the gentlemen who are presenting today, who have put an extraordinary amount of time and energy into this effort. Talk about community engagement and talk about skin in the game. You guys have gone above and beyond, and I have so much gratitude, not just as the Ward 1 representative, but as a longtime resident of this city. And as somebody who learned how to drive on Akron Peninsula Road, sorry everybody, that was me. As somebody who grew up back in those days when there were junk cars in what is now, the Beaver Marsh. Somebody who has seen every phase of the valley and who was called some years ago by my younger brother, who wanted to tell me about a group of people who were getting together, and they were thinking about calling themselves Preserve the Valley. Big shout out to not only the two of you, but also all of the volunteer folks who got involved with Preserve the Valley. With due respect to the expressed concerns about community awareness and engagement, there has never been better partnership on communication and engagement than on the Merriman Valley Plan. Such good listening and just such good exchange of information, and I am deeply grateful. I think it's probably important that, for those who commented in this hearing today, that we be mindful that we do have some other ways that we will be taking care of bodies of water. The riparian setback ordinance, which is not specific to Akron. There is a regional effort to protect our waterways, our bodies of water, and happy to discuss that with concerned citizens today or any time. I do appreciate that we are all new to this, and that it's going to take a minute for us to get our heads around this. And I think maybe it bears mentioning that when we say it will take 25 years to see this in the valley, what we're talking about is that for the merchants, for the building owners who are in the commercial district, no one is expecting them to do a makeover of their building today. That when we talk about this taking 25 years, what we're talking about is that it's only the redevelopment of one of those buildings or the demolition and new development of one of these properties in that area, and just talking specifically about the commercial area as it exists today, where these new standards, these new guidelines will come into play. So I think it's important to understand that. So for anybody who is brand new to the topic, it's not that there's an expectation that starting today, you better start buying a lottery ticket because you're expected to redo your commercial building or your home. That's not it. What we've done here is to bring into, literally a new century, some standards that are meant to modernize a city that deserves to be modern in every way. I'm so grateful for the work I've had a chance to do with you, also with my neighboring council colleague, Councilman Malik, that we were able to partner in bringing in a resolution designating Akron a gateway community to the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. All of these things are like pieces to a puzzle. And one more thing that I really want to point out, when we talk about equity as part of form-based code, I think it's really important we understand what that means. In sustainability, I think we all have maybe a topical understanding of what that means, right? We think about protecting the environment, we think about the tree canopy. Yes, all of these things are part of this. But there is a human pillar of sustainability, and that is how we treat each other and how we look at what constitutes community. And so one thing that I think is really important when we're looking at this form-based code is how these changes are going to enable folks who move differently, who experience the world differently, how this allows them to move through our community, how people who don't have cars or don't want cars, okay? People who are reliant on public transportation or other people helping them move. This is all designed to facilitate these things, the human pillar of sustainability. So thank you for all you've done here.
Thank you. Linda Mobian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too appreciate especially what the presenter said in trying to understand the current code and making the new one a little bit more understandable. So at least I think the direction that I can appreciate is that direction. I also agree that hopefully we can get around to all of these neighborhoods to explain what we're doing. And I think that is a good direction for all of us. Here's what my concern is, and this is a concern I have over and over and over again. When people have purchased buildings or houses that were converted to 2 or 3 units, and they purchased them because they were that way, without knowing that the city may not have been aware of the change that was made by the previous owner, and it was out of conformance with the zoning code. And we accept some neighborhoods and some buildings in certain areas and not in others. And I'm sure we can justify how and why we do that. But that continues to be something that I struggle with, trying to understand and get my arms around, that this neighborhood where you may have a 3-unit building that was once a single family dwelling, we cannot convert it over, maintain it, or whatever, allow the new owner to continue it with that many units. But in some other neighborhood, we can. And that is always something that has baffled me. And now that you are talking about not worrying about all the parking and all the things that we currently worry about with this new form use coding, I hope my understanding is correct, but I'm certain I have to listen to the information again and again. But at least you're making it a little plainer as to maybe how we can accommodate some of these changes that have been made. And I understand a lot of the people would still have to go for conditional use zoning when something is not in conformance. And I know changing all of these zoning codes is going to take a lot of time, but I just want to make sure that however we do this, that we are being consistent and fair as we go from neighborhood to neighborhood when we look at those kinds of differences. And that's just one example. I do appreciate the work because, like you said, trying to read these current mixed use, or I made a little note. the use-based versus the form-based coding is always, joggling my mind. So hopefully this will be better for citizens to understand and get their arms around it. So, but thank you very much for the work that you've done. I can appreciate the direction we're going. Thank you.
Shamus Malik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I first just want to echo some of the comments that have been made by Councilwoman Holland and others, just thanking, a number of people that have been a huge part of this. There's so much work that's gone into getting to this point, because this really is the way that the city is in large part going to implement the Merriman Valley Master Plan. And so, many people on council have been involved in the process. Obviously, Mr. D'Angelo and Mr. Antonucci have been very involved throughout the process. Really, the entire City of Akron Planning Department and the City of Cuyahoga Falls Planning Department have worked incredibly collaboratively, and I think it's really a testament to Mayor Horgan and Mayor Walters really kind of joining arms in this. And so I really am appreciative of that, because I think we've heard during the process of this some stories about when there was less collaboration. And so it's been really cool to watch that happen. And I think actually that there's opportunity even in today's comment in the public hearing for that to further play out, because the area, I think, bordering Sackett Hills, I think is mostly in the Schumacher Cuyahoga Falls section of the Valley Planning map. And so when those concerns were first raised with me, I referred them over to Councilman Russ Balthus with Cuyahoga Falls. And I think we're probably best served with kind of checking back with Cuyahoga Falls and seeing kind of where their thought process is around that as we try to decide how to move forward with that specific comment. But really, I just want to say I'm excited. As Councilwoman Holland said, this is going to be one piece of what helps bring growth to the valley. We're already seeing some folks decide to invest and really decide to kind of try to start building what that future could look like. And then I very much take seriously what my colleagues, Mr. Fusco and Ms. Mosley, have shared in terms of making sure that this is something that is not just utilized in one ward. I know there's been discussion about using form-based code with regard to other projects. And I think, absolutely the kind of focus that was brought to the Merriman Valley here should be applied throughout the city.
All I'm saying. Thank you.
So I absolutely agree. So those were all the comments I wanted to make.
Thank you. Unfortunately, it didn't happen everywhere. Mr. Freeman and then Sharon Connor.
Thank you so much. I just want to say thanks to everybody. And I did want to point out when this happened on Kenmore Boulevard, it was really a collaboration between folks at the city and also somebody who has been investing in the boulevard. So I just kind of want to give a shout out to Mr. Todd Ederer. He was really involved in this whole process for Kenmore Boulevard, and it's worked out well for us, and look forward to the future here. But just wanted to say thank you, especially for the work that Mr. Ederer did with some of our development folks over here. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon Connor.
Again, echo my council members' thank yous. I know you're heading towards East Market Street next, so we appreciate your meetings that you've held in East Akron to make our residents aware. I do have a question, though. In thumbing through this, you cite a lot of things like possible uses, but you didn't address the noise ordinance. With so much mixed use, noise ordinance currently is 9 o'clock in residential, 10 o'clock in commercial. But if we keep doing all this mixed use, is it going to be 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock? I think we need to look at unifying that noise ordinance citywide so that we don't have that confusion when residents call the police when the bar down the corner has a band playing till 10 o'clock. So that would be my one question, is maybe we could look at the noise ordinance in conjunction with all this mixed use.
Absolutely. Thanks. Mr. Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to share. We spoke about equity in the project. One of the things that's a challenge anytime you have this type of improvement is the increase of property values across the city. And the challenge there is, I don't, I know this code won't address it, but I think it's something that council is going to have to look at is how to, um, I know in the Summit Lake area, our county council president talked about a legacy tax, protecting residents from being adversely impacted from the improvements that come in that area. Um, when we're giving developers, the 15-year, 100% tax abatement, uh, I remember when uh, our past planning director spoke about how we were going to make up the difference on that tax abatement. He said, well, by increasing everybody's tax values, property values. That is something that just comes with this type of improvement. It's a benefit, of course, to the community. But for those who have lived in their properties for a while, especially for those who are outside the city, outside of that area where the actual improvement is taking place, to still have their property values impacted is something that's going to have to be looked at when we talk about equity from a financial standpoint. And then the other thing is with our city's population shrinking, some communities like Detroit and others are trying to reduce their footprint to reduce their overall cost of maintaining their city. So I think one thing that we have to look at, since we share this area, when it comes to maintaining those roads and everything like that, are we going to, is that going to be a shared responsibility with our neighboring community in Cargo Falls, or is that going to fall on the city as far as snow plowing and things of that nature? When it comes to city providing trash pickup and everything for when it comes to city services.
We do have mutual aid agreements, I believe, in reference to that. So I think those would trigger in, that would be a public service question, I believe. Yes. Thank you. Very good. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Very good. We'll now move on to the balance of the agenda. I'm going to request time. And with that, I believe that's all there is in terms of the planning agenda. With that, we're adjourned. Thanks.
Thank you.
Our next committee today will be the Public Service Committee. Those committee members are Mosley, Kamer, Holland, Lombardo, and McKittrick. Again, that's the Public Service Committee, and it will begin at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Okay, can I call public service to order? Calling Mr. Lombardo to his seat. All right. Do we have all committee members present? Okay. All righty. If I could get a motion approval of our previous meeting minutes?
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. We have quite a few pieces coming before us today. We'll start with the first one. It's an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or the purchasing agent to enter into a contract or contracts with Mars Electric Company for the supply of light fixtures and to enter into a contract or contracts after publicly advertising for bids with a contractor for the installation of parking deck lighting upgrades Phase 5 at the Cascade Parking Deck and declaring an emergency. Mr. Lotto?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Yes, this is, I believe this is the second time we've done this with Mars, and what we've done, you've allowed us to purchase these lights through that supplier, and then we bid this work out on Bonfire. So when we bid it on Bonfire, we specifically target our minority companies, whether they're MBE, DBE, WBE companies, to install these lights. To give you a little update on Cascade parking deck, this upgrade here will bring us about 75% LED in that deck. Unfortunately, with that deck being totally underground, the high-pressure sodiums, they would stay on 24/7. So we did this analysis, and by upgrading to LED, high-pressure sodium, they'll last anywhere from 3 to 4 years. And each year they degrade, so you don't get the looms out of them you did at the beginning. So with LED, you don't have that degradation with the LED, and they last about 10 years. So you not only save on the maintenance cost, you save on the electric cost. So our payback is just a little over 3 years on these lights. So the trouble right now is getting enough contractors in there to bid those and disruption to the deck. So, and another thing with these LEDs, on the ramps, they're full power or they're full looms all the time. But in the areas where there's not, you don't have any motion, the lights go down to about 75% on the LED, but that 75% of full power is still better than the high pressure sodiums. And as you get motion through the deck, people go to their car, they will go back up to full power to allow them to get to their car and get out of their space, or get into their space and out of their car into where they're walking. So with that, I will take any questions.
Okay. Any questions from committee members? Any questions from council members? Seeing none, what's your pleasure?
Consent's fine.
Can I get a motion for consent?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Ayes have it. Next piece is ordinance authorizing the mayor or his designee to apply for and, if awarded, accept and expend grant funding from Akron Metropolitan Area Transportation Study, AMATS, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Little?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Yes, this is something we do every few years, and we're applying for funds anywhere from some for next year and some all the way out to 2028. So some of the highlights that we're applying for is a citywide signalization project, to upgrade our signals, not only with cameras, with smart technology, the Merriman Road study from basically Portage Path to the north limit of Merriman Road. There's 3 signals there that we will study through that corridor. And it's going to tie right into the form-based zoning for the valley. So that would be a study. West Portage Trail sidewalks, we've talked about this for years. We fully designed those last year, and with this funding we're hoping to get is maybe we'll get those sidewalks in next year. And then we have the corridor transportation grants that we're looking for the, I'm sorry, let me get my notes here. We're looking for TASA, the Rubber City Heritage Trail. Phase 1 is currently under construction, so we're not looking for any funding, but we are looking in this funding for $500,000 for the Rubber City Heritage Trail Phase 2. That is in design currently. That's programmed out for a couple years from now. And then we have the Rubber City Heritage Trail 3 and 4, we're looking for funding. So right now, the first phase is going to take us from 76 down there by Kelly Avenue and take us up to River Street. And then the next project will take us, or the first project will take us behind Goodyear. The second project will take us right there from Dave's Market, around Dave's Market to Huntington. And then the third phase will take us through Firestone Park, and then the fourth phase will end at Lafayette. There's 7 total phases, but these are the first 4 that we're doing now with the funding. The other 2 that we're looking for, we broke it up in 2 different resurfacings, is South Main Street between Wilbeth and 224, and that's still a few years out, but we're looking for funding now. And then the next phase of that would be from 224 down by Holy Cross Cemetery all the way to the South Court line, which is Warner Road.
Oh, okay. All righty. Any questions from committee members? Councilwoman Holland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. More in the nature of a comment and an oh boy. I think I heard you create a tie-in with the Merriman Valley Plan and form-based code. Indeed, as long as I've been sitting in this room, I've been trying to get a sidewalk on Portage Trail West. There are kids, there are families, there are differently abled people who are trying to get up and down that hill. And so I just wanted to confirm that I heard that right.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions from committee or council members? Seeing none, Chris, what's your pleasure?
Consent's fine.
Can I get a motion for consent?
Motion for consent?
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Ordinance authorizing, next piece is ordinance authorizing Director of Public Service or his designee to execute the consent legislation with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the resurfacing of Route 8 and declaring an emergency. Mr. Leto?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of committee, this is an ODOT project resurfacing. So all this legislation will do is allow them to work in our city limits. There's no cost to the city. The resurfacing will be from the Route 8 bridge, right there just north of the Route 8 bridge, what they're replacing currently, and it will take us to the Corp line, which is up close to Howe Avenue, which is about 2 miles. This project is about 5 miles of resurfacing, not that all we're doing is allowing them to work in the city of Akron, but what they're bidding is from the Route 8 bridge all the way to Graham Road, resurfacing of Route 8, so.
Okay. This has nothing to do with what's going on right now,
No.
correct? Okay.
Separate project.
Okay. Okay. Any questions from committee members? Council? Seeing none, what's your pleasure, Chris?
Consent's fine.
Can I get a motion for consent?
So moved?
Second?
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Next piece is ordinance authorizing Director of Public Service without the formality of publicly advertising for bids to execute the gas commercial line extension agreement with Dominion Energy, Inc. and declaring an emergency. Mr. Leto?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of committee, yes, Fire Station 12, which is currently under construction, is in need of a 150 kVA natural gas generator, which would be totally a backup to the station in the event that they lose power. The gas line that's there, we knew that it was low gas pressure and it wouldn't be large enough, so this will allow Dominion to run a new gas line from basically down from the intersection of Hawkins and Exchange all the way down to the new fire station. It's a medium pressure, so they will always have plenty of gas in the event that they have to run that generator.
Okay. Okay. Any questions from committee members? Council? Seeing none, Chris, what's your pleasure?
Could we suspend the rules, ma'am, because we want to get that under roof and get some heat in that place before winter.
Can I get a
Motion to suspend the rules with a favorable report?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Next piece is an ordinance authorizing the mayor's designee to apply for and, if awarded, to accept and expend the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation Safety Intervention Grant for a portable traffic signal and declaring an emergency. Chris?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of committee. Yes, this is a grant that we're applying through for the OBWC. I see Tessa's out here. She was very instrumental in getting us the last grant, which we get that fume eliminator, if you remember from the welding out at Public Works a couple months back. So what this will do is these portable flaggers are actually traffic signals that will sit on the side of the construction site. And then as a car comes up, it's all based on timing. They're solar powered. They do have a battery in them in the event that the solar would die, especially this time of year when you have shorter days. But this way, we don't have to have flaggers out there. We can leave them out there 24/7. Heaven forbid it would be a big cave-in or something like that on the road where we had to be out there for a few days. So we're applying for this, and hopefully we're successful in getting this, these traffic signal indicators.
Okay. Someone's gonna lose a job. Maybe that's just me thinking that.
It's a lot safer out there than
Yeah,
having people
I
out
get
there
it.
with flags.
I get it. Any questions from committee members? Council? What's your pleasure, Chris?
Consent's fine.
Can I get a motion for consent?
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Next piece is an ordinance authorizing Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of advertising for bids with PTA Engineering, Inc. for the provision of professional engineering services for the low-lift building 5 kV feeder relocation project and declaring an emergency. Mr. Ludlow?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of committee. Yes, on the west end of the plant, up at the water plant off of Ravenna Road, we have, as you pull all the way back behind the building, we have a 5K feeder that runs from one building to the other. It's overhead. It's not high enough for semis to get under. So currently, the semis have to pull into that plant entrance or on the west end, drive around the other side of the building behind the railroad tracks to deliver this chemical. It is getting older. PTA did some other design for us on the electric up there, and we would like to have them design this to put everything underground on this 5K feeder to eliminate that risk of a truck hitting this overhead electrical from one building to the other.
Okay. Questions from committee members? Council? All right, seeing none, Chris, what's your pleasure?
Consent's fine.
Can I get a motion for consent?
So moved.
Second?
No, motion second, all in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Next piece is an ordinance authorizing Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Arcadis US, Inc. for the provision of professional engineering services for the sodium hydrochloride feed system replacement project and declaring an emergency. Mr. Ludlow?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Yes, this is, Arcadis has done other design for us, especially on the hypochlorite system. Hypochlorite's basically bleach. But we are looking to replace the 4 bulk tanks, the 4 day tanks, the 2 transfer pumps, the metering pumps on this whole system. It's over 20 years old. It's almost beyond its useful life, so we want to upgrade this system, and this will allow us to hire Arcadis to do the design for that.
Okay, okay. Any questions from committee members? Council? Seeing none, what's your pleasure?
Consent's fine.
Can I get a motion for consent?
So moved.
Second?
We have motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Last piece is ordinance authorizing Director of Public Service or his designee to enter into a contract or contracts without the formality of publicly advertising for bids with Akron, Inc. for the provision of professional engineering services for the miscellaneous spillway improvements project and declaring an emergency. Mr. Ludlow?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. Yes, this legislation will allow us to engage with the contract with AECOM for the design of the improvements needed at our dam structures. They will do evaluations of our concrete on both sides of the Lowhead dams and at the Rockwell Dam. And then they will do a full design, and then that will allow us to bid any improvements that are needed.
Okay. Okay, any questions from committee members? Councilwoman Holland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Ludlow, where all do we have dams?
Well, they're right on the Cauga River, obviously. So we have one right at the plant, Rockwell Dam. Then we have an earthen dam at Ladue, and then we have another dam up in the headwaters, which is West Branch.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions from committee or council? Seeing none.
Consent's fine.
Consent, can I get a motion for consent?
So moved?
Second?
I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. And we have nothing else coming before us. We are adjourned.
Our next committee today will be the Health and Social Services Committee, and it will begin at 2:30. Those committee members are Amobian, Freeman, Baylor, Neal, and Holland. Again, that's the Health and Social Services Committee, and it will begin at 2:30. Thank you.